Home prices are continuing to go up, you guys, everywhere that we go, and we're seeing that is it home prices? Is it interest rates? Is it both? Or is it just your monthly payment? So the monthly payments are continuing to go higher. We want to go live today so that you guys can look at a couple little bits of this information and let me know what you're actually thinking about it. So let's pull up our first story today. What I wanted you to look at is the average sales price for homes in the United States. Now, this chart is going back quite a long ways if we take a look at it. This is going back to 13. Now, we could go back farther if we want to. We don't necessarily have to. But prices, as we know, the average in the US only went down very, very slightly during the gray line here, which was the recession when we had the first lockdowns. But if we look a little bit to the right, we could see a big drop off. And so, what is the average home price? Went from 560 down to 520. Now, this is the average everywhere that we go, but we're not even close to seeing what is happening in very, very expensive areas. Again, if we take a look at the Case Shiller Home Price Index versus CPI, so this is home adjusted price increases. If we take a look at this, this goes back to 1880. Listen, that's not very interesting. So if you fast forward this until when we went off of the gold standard in 71, you start to see a deviation starting to happen. When you continue down that deviation, where you can see is after 2000, it really went bananas. So inflation is down here in the black line. Then when you see that red line, massive deviation when you get up higher up here. And this was with a bubble that we all know during the great financial crisis. Then as you continue on where inflation is, we are at record prices compared to inflation, even if you go back to 1880. So this is going to create some major trouble as we're heading through this. If we look at Canada specifically, Canada, our home price index right here, if you look at year over year change, we can even see in 2009 how in Canada prices did go down. How much? Average 10%, barely affected people. But if we look at where we are today, there was a massive increase as we were printing money and a massive decline now in 2023. Big, big problems. So if we continue on with that exact same idea, we got to know that we are into some trouble these days. So what are you going to be doing with your money? So if we take a look at a big city like where we are in Toronto, the average prices in Toronto have been really affected. They are now down on average. Let's take a look since last spring, on average, down 13%. Now, why is it only 13%? As you can see, it was 980,000 in January, 880,000. So prices have rebounded a huge amount, like $75,000 per person. And that is only because of these banks that have been failing one after the other after the other. So this is very, very important for you to know what is happening with prices. And it really doesn't matter where we choose. If we want to go across Canada and pick some of the big cities, Toronto, Vancouver, maybe we can choose Montreal is a big place, Ottawa. Where else would you like? If we try to take a whole bunch of the cities and put them next to each other, you could see these massive drops as those interest rates were really hurting people. So to see it go from 1.3 million all the way down to 1,081,000, that could be a bankruptcy event for many, many people. So thank you guys for giving me your comments. Please leave more comments. If there's something that you would like to know, I'd be happy to show you or share with you if it's something that interests you. So these are the different places that we're looking at today. Let's take a look at some of the questions that we're getting today. Is it a good idea to put in, I don't know what that means. Quick websites, can we get this info in the US and Canada? So some of these websites that I'm showing you are public, some are not. So this is the Canadian Real Estate Association. You can also go to RBC, has some reports. This are Fred St. Louis results. This is long-term trends. This is Korea as well. Is it worth it to install a background pool in Whitby? No, it is not. Can 02 Gold, is it worth it for you to put in a pool into that? So that would be an outer suburb. You're not getting that money for it anymore. That was 2021, and it's not worth it anymore. So what changed? Rates are still high. Why prices are going up? This is a very, very good question. Why are prices going up? So if you just look up for me Canada and look up a 5-year bond, for example, if you are in Canada. Take a look at what's happening with the bonds. Now let's go back in the 5 days. What's happened with our bonds? They've been dropping. And remember, mortgage rates are tied to bonds. If we want to go back even farther and go back 1 year, you're just going to see that bonds have been high at some times, paying 3.7. Look at where they are right now, 2.8. So as the mortgage rates have dropped a full percentage point, that means home prices can go up 10%. So big differences in that. Um, the CRA getting a 12% raise. They didn't get a 12% raise. They got like a 30% pay cut. If inflation went up 40, 50% in the past 3 years and they only got a 12% raise moving forward, they're actually getting a 30 or 35% pay cut. So you have to look at everything in special ways, I guess. Yes, I do have Halifax. Let's take a look for you for Halifax and Dartmouth. So if you look at these three, you have to see that there's some similarities, right, Rick? When we're taking a look at this, we're seeing that it's going up and up and up, and that's money printing. That is increasing the rates and then down. But remember, the farther it goes up, the faster it goes up, the faster it comes down. So red is the Ottawa. Montreal is in the blue. Dartmouth is here. So let's go Dartmouth average price just before we went into money printing. $299 was the average price. Where did it peak out at? 544. That is a massive problem. So it has dropped down, as you can see here. It has dropped down, but it's recovering. Again, the reason why it's recovering and it's going up from 579 average all the way to 596. The reason it's doing that is because the interest rates, the mortgage rates have dropped. Did LJ is asking, did rates drop? Is their question? Yes, the rates have dropped. And so when you look at bond rates match the mortgage rates. And so mortgage rates have dropped at most lenders because bond rates have fallen. If they fall, and even if we go just to, what do you want? Go 1 month. If we just take 1 month and look at it, so this is what's happening with mortgage rates. They're also dropping. And so as they drop, buyers can buy more property. So, and they're good for everybody, all different types of buyers. All right, you guys. So do you guys have any other questions for me? Let me know. So this is for the Canadians. We have lost more property price than we have in a very long time, as you can see here. If we go to look at the States, we're seeing property prices dropping in the US. If we want to look at Case-Shiller, we're at extremely high rates with the interest rates that we're paying. And there's no way to really recover from this. This is going to lead to some very messy things in the real estate market. Did you miss the bottom in the GTA real estate market? So let's just take a look. This is the average price of Toronto homes. Average price, they were at 1.3 million was the average price. And where did it go? Today it's sitting at 1,050,000. You're wondering if we did it here. This is only because some banks have collapsed and they lowered the rates. This is the only reason. And so this could actually drop a lot more. We're expecting another 10 to 15% to go down. Have a good day. Another honest data video. Hey, buddy, thank you so much. I appreciate it. This is on our YouTube. So if you have any questions for me, please fire them out and I'll try to get back to you. So you just bought in Ottawa. Was it bad timing? So I don't ever like to poo-poo on anybody and their ideas, but let me give you an idea of what I think of Ottawa, and let's try to pull it up so that we can have a better understanding. I did a video on YouTube. If you guys are not following me on YouTube, I think that you're missing out. Please go do so. But let's look at the greater Toronto, and let's pick Toronto versus Ottawa. Please go check out my YouTube and check out what I said there about capital cities. So if you look at these three that are here, you can see that Toronto prices have gone up more than anyone else. So we always say the faster it goes up, the faster it falls. So we could see Toronto prices dropping 1.33 million all the way down to 1,078,000. That is a bankruptcy event for a lot of different people to lose 30% on the properties. Check out Ottawa is right here, and below this is Halifax. So Ottawa it went from, just before we went into money printing mode, it went from 484 up to 712. That's still a lot. But capital cities are generally constrained because there is a lot of government workers that make between 50 and 120,000. So it kind of puts a lid on home prices. If people generally make more and they leave it, they're going to go to Montreal or Toronto. So it kind of keeps a lid on it. And so capital cities are generally a lot better than cyclical places. What website is this that you can see Canada price charts? Well, you can. This site is Canadian Real Estate Association. You can also. This is a private website. You can also go to RBC payments, RBC websites, and check out that. So if you guys have any questions for me, please let me know in here. But this is the news for you. Is if we look in the past 5 days, we're seeing that temporarily, as banks are collapsing in the United States, we're seeing that this is going to continue down. As this goes down on payments, it's going to have a big effect on home prices moving forward. If you guys want to reach me, what we specialize in is selling properties around the Greater Toronto area. You can go to sellhigher.ca, sellhigher.ca. You can get a free consultation with my team about filling out just your name, phone number, and we can sell your homes for you for more money and less hassle. But this is the thing that you have to pay attention to, is that, yes, as we are money printing, home prices went bananas. Look at that 30% year over year increase. That is not healthy. So whenever there's a massive increase, there has to be a drop. If we just even go back to 06, you can see there that there was a big increase and then it had to fall off. Sharp increase has to fall off. Every time there's a sharp increase, it has to fall off and equal out. And so we're seeing this right now, extra sharp high, extra sharp low. And this is going to continue on and on. When should a first-time Toronto condo buyer start looking? So this really depends. If you look at Toronto average prices, you see here how it says it's down 13% as a whole. So we could be more specific than this. If we want to take a look at, for example, this is for Brenda. If we were going to look right downtown, okay, let's say this is M5 Victor, and we wanted to look at just condos, for example. You're saying you're a first-time condo buyer. Say that you wanted to buy a first-time condo. Look at this. Now, once you're downtown in a good area, already you're losing way less than you are in the rest of the markets, only 5.9%. Now, let's say that you were only going to look at, if you're a first-time buyer, I'm going to assume that you're looking at a one-bedroom. Maybe let's see how one-bedrooms are behaving, 8%. So, you can consider looking at each area as if it's a completely different market. That's what's very, very important. Let's try to look at, for example, if we went into out of town, and we're going to look at something that is maybe in the suburbs, for example. If we take a look at the suburbs now, look at this, and now it's up to 17%, much higher. Now, what happens if we just wanted to look at detached properties? Because detached properties are generally more expensive. Now we can see it's down 22%. The point about showing this to you, Rose, is that this is Brenda Rose, sorry, is that the bigger the home, the farther the drop is down. So this is down 22%, right? It's down 22% because it was a more expensive property. That's what you got to know. And so buying into a smaller condo in very, very good areas, it hasn't changed very much. Whereas there's a lot of areas that are down 20, 30, 40%, whereas those condos have not, because everybody sells their expensive home and moves into their smaller home. So, if you bought now, it's not such a terrible idea, but I still probably would be waiting at least until Q3 of this year. If you're thinking of buying, you could also reach out to me if you'd like. Just go to sellhigher.ca, sellhigher.ca, put your name and phone number in there. It's a free consultation for our group, and we can help you out. All right, so that is a good question. What makes me think that prices can still drop 10 to 15% more? It is because people cannot afford their payments right now. It's the number one thing that we're talking to people about. So if you wanted just to do mortgage loan comparison, just search something online for loan comparison calculator. You guys, people's salaries have not gone up. That's the problem. So if you had a $1 million thing last year at 2% and this year is at 6%, let's say, and they're both 25-year amortizations, let's just say, if this is what you have, this is why I know you were paying $4,000 last year and now you have to pay $6,000, 4,200, 6,400. This is why prices have to come down, is because people can't afford it. So what has to happen on this property? Let's just say you dropped it to $650,000. Now from 1 million down to 650,000, it now keeps the price at the same. So people cannot afford the payments. They haven't had a raise. So what's going to happen? They're spending their debt and they're going to be in trouble in the long run. So that's why prices have to readjust. This is just the way it is, unfortunately. All right, so let's see if we have any other questions. Thank you guys for all these questions on YouTube. If you have any questions, please shoot them out to me. I'll see if I can try to help you guys out. The bond trending down. Do you see 5-year fixed in the high fours? It's possible. That really, really depends on what the banks are going to be doing. But if you take a look at the RBC charts, we can see something funny that's happening in RBC is that their fixed rates have paused and variable rates are higher. So you have to understand what are the banks trying to teach you to do. Fixed rates are always higher. This is just the way it is in a regular market. Fixed rate makes you feel good, security blanket. So why did they last year stop raising those fixed rates and increase the variable rate? When you have rate inversion like this, it shows you that something funny is about to happen in the market. So this is where I would have extreme caution, and I wouldn't be using a fixed rate right now. That's just me. Yes, we're doing real estate here, Daniel. If you guys would like to reach out to me, you can always reach out to me at sellhigher.ca. You can click the link right here for a free consultation. Doesn't cost you anything. And what we specialize in is selling properties in Toronto. Yep, Montreal prices. Yeah, so let's take a look at Montreal prices. Montreal has been special, let's say. Let's try to pull up Montreal in the midst of everyone else just so that we could do a comparison. So this is going to be greater Montreal, okay? Not just downtown. This is not just downtown, okay? But if you look at these four, these are how 4 different cities are behaving. The first one is the greater Toronto area, so the entire Toronto. We can see average price 1.3 down to 1.1, essentially big drop. But down here, look at Ottawa. It's a bigger rise and bigger fall. But if we head down here, Halifax and Montreal, look at that. So Halifax is even more dangerous than Montreal. If you look at Montreal by itself, we can see that they started printing money and it went from an average price of 371 and went all the way here to 555. And it's dropped a little bit, but to what? From 555 down to 497? It dropped 10%. That's nothing. But you also, because you didn't have such a big rise in prices like Toronto right here, Toronto suffered a big drop because it went up so fast. Montreal didn't experience that. So Montreal is not doing as bad, and definitely Quebec is one of the least money printing areas. They did not buy as much as they did. Daniel, average rent in Toronto right now is $3,000 for a condo. $3,000 for the greater Toronto area. $3,000 is the average rent. You can also use a rule of thumb. 1 square foot of property here to rent is $3.50 a month. So you can just choose. If it's 1,000 square feet, $350 a month, $3,500. If it was 500 square feet, multiply that by $3.50. It'll generally give you a good idea of what the prices are. Monty and Princess, you're very welcome. Thank you very much. And if there's any questions you guys have for me, let me know. Questions, how about these bailouts now and then renewals coming? You're right. So J-Dub, this is a very, very good question, okay, for this. The reason that we have to pay attention to this is because this is going to continue happening. They're going to continue to be bailing out banks. There's going to be continuing to have failures. And so as these failures continue, do you see in the States right now, there's another 3 banks that are at risk of collapsing just this week. And if 3 more collapsed, do you remember on Sunday, another bank had collapsed? We have to remember these things, and they are just printing money in order to keep them awake. If they print money to keep them alive, then what is going to happen? They will crash. So if they do crash, then they got to print money, more inflation. Now, this is going to continue happening. The US does not want to bail out banks, but what's worse is they don't want to lose faith in the money system. They are the world's reserve currency. They have no choice about this. So I think that you got to understand that this will continue. Now, how is renewals? If you had a renewal with a bank that is collapsing, doesn't matter at all, because they're just going to move that mortgage over to the new bank. So it's not going to change your life at all. If you have a deposit, not going to change your life at all. But if you're a shareholder in that company, in that bank, you're going to lose all your money. Then it's just disappeared, gonzo forever. For people who have renewals coming up, the more important thing is not moving banks, is if you do not have capital in your account, you're going to lose everything. You're going to lose. So we just looked at Toronto, for example, 1.3 million, and they would get a $1.1 million mortgage on that. Okay, yeah, but the home is only worth $1 million now. And the law says you can only have an $800,000 mortgage. So they're underwater by $400,000. Where did they come up with that $400,000? If they don't pay that $400,000 on renewal date, they're in a lot of trouble and they'll get forced into some kind of foreclosure or something. The bank will decide what they're going to do at that time. So as we're seeing all of these come up through the summer and especially in the fall, we're going to see a lot more banking troubles in the news. But that's a very, very good question. I mean, this is going to for sure continue. All right. So how long should we wait before purchasing a home, specifically Montreal? The first time that I would be looking at it is Q3 of this year. So that would be July, August, September. I wouldn't be doing anything until then. There's too many banks at risk right now. We just saw TD in the news as well. TD is in the news because of their dealings and lots of trouble that's happening right there. How will prices drop when banks are saving homeowners by extending amortization? LJ, this is a very, very good question and legit question, but it is wrong. They can only extend the amortization period between renewals. They can never renew at a 40-year mortgage. So the date that they have, in Canada, we don't have 30-year lock mortgages. In Canada, they can only lock it in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And so whenever that renewal comes due, they have to reset their payments back to a 25-year. And that's going to be the day that everyone loses their home. But that really, really depends on, how long do they have the banks to prepare for this amount of losses. Interest-only payments, that's illegal in Canada, so you can never qualify for an interest-only payment. I know that they're currently having that. That's a Band-Aid, but you can never renew at that. The question is renewal versus temporary patchwork that they're doing right now. The banks are hungry for new money and mortgages. Actually, they're not. Banks are lending way, way, way less. We have 35% less applicants right now, and I think it's like 60% less dollars actually going into loans. It's huge. Do you think banks will crash as well as the United States? No, Canada has 5 mega banks, so the odds of us ever crashing is very, very, very little. They're much more heavily regulated right now. So this is important for you to know. What if someone shorted those banks? They're going to make millions of dollars. Monto and Princess, you're very welcome, buddy. I think you were the one asking me about Montreal properties, which is this yellow line right here. Montreal is doing very, very well. It's very, very consistent. The problem with Montreal, it's good to buy your home there, your personal home. It's a terrible place for you to buy a rental. You would never want to be in a rental in Montreal, ever. TD Bank pulled out of the merger US deal. Yes, it's in the news today. That's great news for TD. TD, that was a sinking ship. They're fortunate to get out of it. Who's to stop the banks from giving all these extensions and renewals too? 40-year interest only. They're not allowed to do that. It's illegal. You'd have to change the law in Canada, get presidents and the Senate and everything involved. It's illegal. When's it a good time to buy a home? That's a good question. Everyone always asks that. So just let's say, just take a look here. If we just look at all these lines of the prices of homes, I'm not even going to tell you what the cities are. If you were going to look at a bunch of these lines that are here, just like that, let's take a guess right now at what you think it is. So just so that you understand, when the prices go up and come down, like in this yellow line here, that would be it could be a bankruptcy event. This giant drop that you see up here, that is a bankruptcy event for many people. So what you would like to do is buy a rental property in an area that is very flat. So generally at the bottom ones, the top ones like this blue one and this one would be places that are not conducive to rentals. But let's take a look here. This is Toronto at the top. Which one is this one? This one's Ottawa. This one's Montreal. So this blue one right there is Montreal. That's not bad, right? I mean, that is only 20% of what Toronto is for the manic depressiveness that Toronto is. But check out this one's Moncton down here. Let's check out Alberta. Look at Alberta, how flat and level that is. That's a great place to buy a home because you want to be buying properties in stable economies. So I think that's a good idea for you to do that. That's for Pinocchio. So some of these websites that I use are private websites. They're not available to the public, unfortunately. Some are provided by Long-Term Trends, and some are Canadian Real Estate Association. If you guys have any questions over on YouTube, please fire away. That's what I'm here for. Anyway, we're going to have to get going, but Pinocchio, yeah, you're very, very welcome. So it's always a good time to buy property. This is everyone's mistake, is they think that, oh, is it when is a good time to buy a property? Well, look at the way that different areas behave, and inside of each one of these cities is commercial real estate and restaurant real estate and industrial manufacturing real estate, small condos, big houses. And so they're all thousands of different markets. Here's the best news to tell you is that it is always a good time to buy real estate, always, if you can find a good deal in the right type of city. So that's what I would tell you guys. Absolutely, it's a great place, great time. If you guys have any other questions, fire away because I'm going to get running right now. And I wish you the very best. Continue to please on crushing it. This is some serious stuff that everyone has to pay attention to. Cities are behaving very rationally. Toronto prices, this is one specific area in Toronto. So let's remove the different areas and see what happens. In Toronto, overall, prices are down 13%, it says, but not from the peak at 1.3. So if you dropped it from 1.3 down to a million, that's more than 1.3. Also, you have to know that there's an inverted rate curve that is happening right now. This is big trouble for the markets. Also, you know, on this is the average home prices in the US is dropping. Rates on the bond yields are dropping. Case-Shiller is continuing to go up because people cannot afford their payments. So, you know, if you're thinking of selling your home, that's what we specifically do. You can always go to sellhigher.ca, sellhigher.ca, and this is where you can meet up with my team. We have rocket fuel marketing packages that helps people sell their properties for a lot more money, and you don't have to deal with it. We deal with everything. We're a full service here, a high-tech firm. So if you guys want to pay attention to what's happening, the bond yields are falling as banks are crashing. And overall, across Canada, prices now are down 15%, which is causing a lot of trouble overall. So Lopegs just said health and gratitude. Thanks for sharing the valuable knowledge. You're very, very welcome. There again, if you guys need me, you can go to sellhigher.ca. This is where we specialize in selling properties. Do you see a housing market crash or anytime soon? Guys, I got to tell you, this is the malarkey that you hear in the news these days. Pinocchio, we are so far into an average crash. It's unbelievable. If you guys were following last year before the war started, I was telling people sell their homes, sell their homes. Before this, if the market went down 5%, they would have said that we were in a market crash at 5%. We were dropping $10,000 a week for most of last year, down to drop from 1.3 million down to a million. We are full blown into a market crash, and it's not over yet. So this is the mainstream media is polluting our brains, our collective brains. Look at what happened in 2009. Do you remember what we were hearing on the news? The world is ending because home prices had dropped 8%. And now we're dropping 15%, and the news is still telling us, well, are we in a recession? Come on, guys, I don't know. We are full blown into one. What type of property should you buy if you have less than $1 million? I would be buying in places like this, not places that are manic depressive. So any places like this, if you're looking in Ottawa, Montreal, Halifax, Alberta, Moncton, you want even keel markets like this, and you need bread and butter housing. The smaller the detached home or 2-bed, 2-bath. Buy high, sell low. I mean, that's the goal, right? What's the average monthly mortgage rates in Montreal? I don't know what that would be, what you mean, but for a mortgage, average price, let's just check that out quickly. If you take a look at Montreal, where we are right here, Montreal, average price in Montreal is $503,000. So just type it into a calculator here, $503,000 at 6% right now, but you could get even less than that. I got like a 5.4 on one of ours. So, you're going to make $3,000 a month. So you have to ask yourself, are you making over $3,000, on your mortgage payment? And are you going to properly manage it yourself or whatever? So there's some questions, I guess, into what you can actually rent the unit for. All right, you guys. Well, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Keep on crushing it. I got one last question from Phil Tree over on YouTube. He's asking us about one specific place. You're looking for Langford, BC. Let's see if I have Langford here. Do you see I don't have Langford? Oh, boy. So could I pull up just British Columbia as a whole? Why do I not have Langford, unfortunately? Oh, man. Well, I could pull up. Maybe I'm being too quick. I can't see BC as a whole, but here is the problem with BC as a whole. BC as a whole, as you see this top one right here, this one right here is Toronto. This one is Langford. Actually, just so that you know, let's pull up the bigger guy that's in the area, Vancouver. Okay, and so let's just try to look at this. When you look at this, the worst infraction is this line right here, which is Toronto. After Toronto, let's try to look at Vancouver, also very manic depressive, but let's look at Vancouver as a whole. I mean, British Columbia as a whole. So when it doesn't rise as much, it's not going to drop as much. Langford is a smaller town. So you understand this is the average, which means Langford is going to be down here. It's going to be somewhere in the center. So because it didn't double in price, it's not going to have a 50% drop. And Langford is going to be doing better than most places because it didn't have as much of a rise and it's not going to have as much of a drop. But still, BC is very, very, very bipolar. It's not like places like Saskatchewan, Alberta, or the Maritimes, for example, Manitoba, Alberta, stuff like that. These guys are way down here. Look at Alberta, is very, very flat. But thank you guys for that question. Heard you say Montreal and they hit the brakes on my scrolling. Yeah, we're talking about Montreal prices. Montreal prices were here, but look at Montreal prices compared to where Vancouver and Toronto is up here. Vancouver and Toronto are way more psychopath. In Montreal, where were we when we started printing money? Let's try and find Montreal again here. There we are, Montreal. So where were we when we started printing money? 382 average, and now it's 486. So it went up, but it's not correcting near as bad as these crazy monkeys that are up here. So we tried to help people out with their investment goals and show you this so that you understand that there are markets that are very, very temperamental, and these are bankruptcy events up here. This is Vancouver, bankruptcy events that happen. Whereas a place like you're looking in Halifax, that's down here, Moncton, Montreal even, they're not as temperamental as that. So you're going to be doing a lot better. Now, of course, capital cities always behave a bit differently. This is the same as if you look at Washington, Canberra, Moscow. It doesn't really matter what capital cities all behave pretty much the same around the world. So Al Gal, if you want to ask us any question, you can do that. Colwood, we don't have. Vancouver Island, we have, Phil. Do you want me to look up Vancouver Island? Let's do that, okay? So let's take a look at, did I lose it? Did I lose it? I think I may have. Woo! I lost it, you guys. I think I must have closed it by accident. So just look up Korea HPI. Let's try to take a look at Vancouver Island for you. But what I want to do is we want to look up the difference then of Vancouver, for example, just so that we can have a good idea of the difference of Victoria, for example. You want to do that? Victoria, I don't know if we have a full Vancouver Island. I thought that we did. Vancouver Island, there we go. Okay. So this is for Phil over on YouTube, buddy. Hopefully this will give you some good ideas. So if you're looking at it, where do you think? I want you to take a brief guess. Which one do you think is Vancouver? Which one do you think is the island? Which one do you think is Victoria? I have a guess. I'm going to guess Vancouver is at the top, Victoria is the second, and the island is third. So let's take a look. Vancouver, yep, Victoria, and the island. And there you go. It's very, very predictable. So when they start printing money, all prices are shooting up, but the ones that have the demand aspect and not just structural inflation are going to have a lot higher. So, to go to 1.26 million in Vancouver down to 1.1, I mean, that's a big drop. But if we look at Vancouver Island overall, look at where we started printing money in the lockdowns. Now all of a sudden we're at 450, shoots all the way up to 770. That's very high. It has come down now to 662, but it's not going to be continuing on like too much longer because we're seeing some funky stuff. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much on YouTube, Instagram. Thank you guys for supporting me. Please consider subscribing to the channel. We go into a long form on this on Gmail. So, on YouTube. So I wish you the very, very best. Hope that you have a fantastic day. Keep on crushing it, you guys.